a year goes by, and here's the big moment. It's like 3 a.m. I'm living with Lisa, and we're asleep. 3 o'clock, lights are out, dark, and the phone rings. And it's never good when the phone rings at 3 a.m. So I pick up, and it's my friend Doug, who did the drum part. And he's screaming in the phone, "Turn on MTV, turn on MTV." And I'm like, what? Turn on MTV? Why? And, my Lisa's hitting me like, tell him you'll talk to him tomorrow. What's the big deal? You guys and your music, like
Right. Yeah. Right.
some videos on, you got to see it. So I'm like, but Doug is flipping out. He's beside himself. So I'm like, all right. So I get out of bed and I turn on MTV, and oh my God, there it is. There's the song.
Insane.
There's a video. There's the song. Like word for word, note for note. I was like, oh my God, is this happening?
You're listening to the Just Sayin podcast, offering conversations with experts that will educate, inform, and entertain. Here's your host of the Just Sayin podcast, Charlie Cornacchio.
The Just Sayin podcast is brought to you by New Leaf Hypnosis Center. At New Leaf, you'll be working with mindset coach and hypnotist Anthony Serino to overcome mental roadblocks holding you back from achieving your goals. Using a science-based and client-centered approach, Anthony will help you design the life you deserve. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Just Sayin podcast. What happens when you have a childhood hero, someone that you've looked up to, you've admired, you wanted to be like, and then you find yourself in court having to sue your childhood hero? Well, today we're going to find out what that is like, because we have a recording session guitarist who sued Ace Frehley over a song that he wrote for Ace, and then Ace Frehley used it without his permission. Gene Moore is the recording session guitarist who admired Ace Frehley from a young childhood and then found himself having to sue him back in the late 80s. Gene, thanks for coming on the Just Sayin podcast, joining us from Mount Kisco, New York. Let's get into the dynamics of what led to the lawsuit. The song that we're talking about is the first cut and a single that was released from Frehley's second Sighting album that was released in 1988. The song is entitled Insane, and you guys kind of co-wrote that. So give us the background.
Charlie, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oops, wrong Gene Moore.
Maybe you have the wrong guy. This is starting to ring a bell, though. Yeah. It's funny you say the whole thing about the guitar hero, growing up, playing along to all the Kiss albums and all those great songs, that had so many great chords that you could wrap your head around as a beginner guitar player. Songs like Cold Gin and Strutter, Firehouse. Oh, these are such great chords to learn on guitar. So I was always, very aware of Ace Frehley growing up. He was one of my heroes as much as, Duane Allman and Jimmy Page. And he was right there. I loved the way he played. I loved the way he phrased. But, as I got older, he was in the news a lot, for not good things. And, and as I got into music more, everybody seemed to have, an Ace Frehley story, of in some level. So, I was aware, he's a real rock star. He lives differently than the rest of us. I remember when I was a kid going to buy a motorcycle in the town I grew up in. And even they had a story. Here I'm in buying a motorcycle, and the guy went, "Oh yeah, Ace Frehley was here, a week ago, and he just tried one of these bikes and he flipped it over, and it was the whole thing." And like, yeah, But
that's my hero.
Then the big one for me was the day he drove the wrong way on the Bronx River Parkway. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Chase.
Yeah.
With the cops right behind him going the wrong way in a
that
DeLorean.
went into White Plains, and yeah.
He ended up in Valhalla. But, I was very aware of all this stuff. So, so flash forward. I'm a session guitar player. I'm maybe 20, 25 years old, somewhere around there. So I played, you know, on other people's material. I just show up at whatever studio and play the songs. And so this was just another gig. It was for a friend of mine named Bill Schurer, who's passed away. But I played on a lot of stuff for Bill, and this was just another date. He had some really good musicians on this date too. I remember we had Clint DeGannon on drums. You remember
Yeah,
Clint?
sure I do. Yeah.
Tommy Mandel on keyboards. He went on to play with, I don't know if he played with Bryan Adams, but he played on the Run to You album. You know, Tommy was all over that. So, you know, these were some really heavy hitters in this room. We finally took a break after a few hours, and my friend Bill came out and said, Gene, I want you to meet somebody. And he pulled me into the control room, and there was Ace. And he goes, Gene, this is Ace Frehley. And I'd never met him. I'd never even seen him without his makeup.
Oh, right.
So it was like, wow, this is Ace Frehley. You know, it was a huge moment, you know, for me as a guitarist, you know, meeting him in person and realizing he's been producing me the whole day. I didn't even know it, you know.
Oh, man.
He's like, man, this guy sucks. Let me take this fader. So he, when I went back to finish I guess I was going back to do my solos now. And just as a goof, I started playing all the old Kiss songs, you know, just to show him that I didn't show some respect or something that I knew, you know, how he voiced all these chords and stuff like that. I thought it would be a cool moment, but I guess he was just like, oh, you know, because he was pretty just fresh out of Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
He just started his solo career.
Right.
And I don't, you know, from what I've read, that didn't end well. So maybe playing that was not the smartest idea. But anyway, so after the session was over, I go in the control room. We're listening to some of the mixes back, and he was really nice. He said, Gene, you know, I really liked your guitar playing. He goes, maybe you want to jam sometime. I'm like, sure, you know, anytime, you know, like I'm a, you know, starving musician, name your time. So, you know, pretty soon after that, we talked on the phone, he gave me his address. So, you know, that was a pretty cool moment. I'm pulling into, you know, Ace Frehley's driveway, you know, it's like the garage was open and all of his road cases were in there. And it had like, you know, Kiss, 12, Ace, you know, 3, the big road cases, you know, the giant, you know, probably had like 4 or 5 cabinets in it.
Right.
And that kind of gave me a thrill. It's like, so, you know, I knock on the door and he comes to the door, and, you know, at that age, I'm just trying to be cool. I don't want to scare him away. You know, I'm just trying to be like, hey, what's up? You know, like, and he was real friendly. He's like, come in. I'm, you know, like having a heart attack. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in Ace Frehley's house right now. You know, this isn't happening. So, but he was totally cool. It wasn't like I walk into, you know, this big party going on and
Right, yeah.
this whole rock star thing. It wasn't that. It was, you know, just come on in, let's hang and talk and play. And so I remember we went into like a music room he had, and he had a bunch of guitars and amps, and he was playing through an amp, you know, like just, you know, musician to musician. Check this out, you know.
Right.
What do you think of this head? What do you think of this sound? You know, how about these pedals? So, you know, it's like we're, you know, just talking about our tackle boxes, you know, like he played me a cassette of a couple of like licks he was working on. And he said, you know, maybe you want to write something together sometime. And I was like, yeah, sure. Absolutely. You know? So he gave me a cassette. It had about 3 songs on it, I remember. And it was just, you know, he pressed record on a little cassette player and just played guitar, you know, live. You know, I was a songwriter at that time. I was used to writing. I was used to recording. And one of the songs just clicked instantly, you know, like I was like, whoa, there's a lyric. Oh, there's a line, you know, like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it started actually on the ride home from his house. You know, that's when you know you got something, you know, it just, you know how it is. It just comes at you. You can't write fast enough. You can't,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
You're writing it as fast as you can because it's just coming in like a flood. I remember I finished it that night, and I called my buddy Doug Brown, and I said, look, I have this song, you know, believe it or not, I wrote this for Ace Frehley, and we're kind of writing this thing together, and can you help me, program a drum part for it? I want to give him back, a fully produced version of this thing. I have words, I have lyrics, I have a melody, I have chords. I sketched the whole thing out, front to back. I even did a solo.
But he only gave you a couple of chords, right?
Did, yeah. It was
that was the genesis of it?
If you know the song, it was just da 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 da. Get this quick little lick in there. He called it Quick Lick. I remember that was the name of the song on the tape. I just remembered that.
Okay.
Quick Lick. That was it. So I got together with Doug, and Doug programmed the drums on a DMX drum machine.
Wow.
Talk about old school. I wonder if that's where DMX got his name. Wow, I never thought of that. The rapper, DMX.
Yeah, sure, right, yeah.
He lives right nearby, actually.
Nearby you?
Yeah, so many people in the music business live right like a mile from me. It's so weird. Warren Haynes.
Yeah.
He's like a mile away. It's a whole nother story. Rob Thomas.
Yeah.
Right here. I had a long chat with him too. DMX, never met him, but I know he lives nearby. But anyway, so we finished the drum part and, laid down the guitar parts and the chords and the bass. And then I tried to sing it, thinking of Ace, like how would he sing this? What kind of vibe would it be and what kind of notes can he hit and that kind of thing. Not that I had some big range, but I just didn't want to, sing something out of his range that wouldn't make sense. Laid a solo down, put it back on a cassette, and called him up and said, okay, I think I got something. He goes, all right, come on back over. Let's see what you got. So I go back over, and he puts the cassette in his big stereo system in his living room and cranks it up, and I'm sweating bullets. I'm just like, oh my God, is this really happening? I didn't know what to make of his reaction because he was like, yeah, it's pretty good.
That's it. No
like,
emotion. No.
Not great. He goes, yeah, it's okay. He goes, let's jam a little bit. And so we played a little bit more. And, he was just a very nice cat. He was like, you want to shoot some pool?
Wow.
Like, yeah, sure. So, I'm shooting pool. Then I'm just trying to keep up. He's my guitar hero. I'm just like, please don't say anything stupid, I think I was over there like 2 more times. I remember buying him lunch and bringing it over. And I also went back over with my wife, Lisa, my girlfriend at the time. He was showing us some stuff he was doing on a computer, a personal computer. And that time it was a little ahead of its time. He was doing some animation stuff. And
wow.
So that was pretty cool.
This was when? Like 88, 87?
Way earlier, 86 probably, somewhere around
86,
there.
86, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was about it. And I think like a year went by. I hadn't had any communication with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I reached out to him a couple of times because I had another song that came to me and I recorded that one and I wanted to give it to him. So I was trying to reach him. But from what I heard, he was moving around a lot and my number wasn't good for him anymore. And I was kind of moving around. So he was having trouble getting in touch with me if he even tried. I don't know. But a year goes by and here's the big moment. Now that I've put everybody to sleep. It's like 3 a.m. I'm living with Lisa and we're asleep, 3 o'clock, lights are out, dark, and the phone rings. And it's never good when the phone rings at 3 a.m. So I pick up and it's my friend Doug who did the drum part. And he's screaming in the phone, turn on MTV, turn on MTV. And I'm like, what? Turn on MTV? Why? And, my Lisa's hitting me like, tell him you'll talk to him tomorrow. What's the big deal? You guys and your music, like.
Right, yeah, right.
Some videos on, you got to see it. So I'm like, but Doug is flipping out. He's beside himself. So I'm like, all right. So I get out of bed and I turn on MTV and oh my God, there it is. There's the song.
Insane.
There's a video. There's the song. Like word for word, note for note. I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Woo, okay. So, didn't sleep the rest of the night, obviously.
Yeah.
And get up the next day and I start, trying to figure this thing out, trying to find Ace, trying to figure, what do I do? What do I have any contract to sign or, like I'm seeing this thing as like saving my life as a musician. I'm scraping by. I'm
Yeah.
always broke. And, you always hear about the big break, that comes. And I thought, wow, this is my break. This could change my life,
Well, you were kind of hot at that moment in time. Wasn't that around the time of the Go Giants Go?
A little before it.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
you were hitting something in the vortex that was like, oh, this is your moment. And for those of
Huh.
you, what I'm referring to is, Gene, you probably could tell it better than I can, but when the Giants were going for their Super Bowl run, you wrote a song take off of Go Johnny Go to Go Giants Go, and
Yeah.
you actually played it at Giants Stadium.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And that got airplay and everything. And wasn't it played in the stadium as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big deal for 15 minutes, but it was a pretty cool ride to be on. I, can't imagine, being a real artist and that's your life.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
brief, but man, it was wild. Everybody wanted to know you.
Everybody wanted you.
Strange.
Wanted you to play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so there you were, and everything was kind of hitting. It was almost like, this is my time. So I could see where you could say, I just wrote a song for him. I just saw it on MTV, word for word, note for note. This is it. This is it.
Yeah. We're
Let's
going.
start looking for a house.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just crazy to think where this could go. And I was so excited about it. But, my next step was to try to, get back in touch with Ace, and I couldn't find him. And I had a lawyer at the time because, we had this band called Restless who was, trying to get a record deal. And so this was our lawyer at the time. I won't mention him, but I started with him and to see what he could come up with and who he could connect me with at the record company. We knew it was Megaforce Records. That's what the record company was at the time. But I couldn't get anywhere. I couldn't reach anybody. Nobody's available for comment. Who are you, Gene Moore? Click. So I started to think, wow, you hear all these things about the music business. Here we go. Wow, I'm in it now.
Right.
So then a long time after that, I was at my in-laws' house and the phone rang and it was Ace. He called me at my in-laws' house. I don't know how he found the number. He said, hey, the record company really loves that song and we're going to release it as the single, off this new CD that's coming out. And I'm like, oh my God, so Ace, what do I do? What's the move? And he goes, well, I'm playing at the Meadowlands tomorrow night. I'm warming up for Iron Maiden. He goes, why don't you come down and then we'll talk about it. You stay after the show, come backstage. I'll leave some passes for you, at the front gate. Just, come on down and then they'll figure this out. So I went down with Lisa. Went to the little gate he told me to go to and said, I have 2 tickets waiting for me for Ace Frehley. And they go, oh yeah, here you go. I'm like, wow, okay, we're in. So we went into the stadium and watched Ace perform and got to hear him do Insane. That was a big moment for me, sitting there looking around, like watching people singing along. Like that was really cool, like,
yeah,
I wrote that. Like, sure you did. But, the Iron Maiden crowd is in those days, it was a hardcore crowd. I mean, the fact that I had a shirt on was unusual, So here I brought my date to the Iron Maiden concert. That was pretty funny. So Elisa was, good sport about it. And I don't know if you remember, Iron Maiden used to have a robot called Eddie. this giant robot would come out on
Yes.
stage.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So her and I watched the whole show. We're waiting until the end, and now I don't really know who Iron Maiden is. I mean, obviously I know the name, but
Yeah.
I don't have any of their albums. I never played any of it, so I'm just not familiar with the band at all. But I'm watching it. They're obviously amazing. The lead singer is unbelievable. So after the concert's over, I show my passes to to get backstage. We go backstage. Lisa and I are hanging out with Iron Maiden. I don't know who they are. I'm the last guy that should be back here right now. I kept thinking, like, all the people that would kill, to be backstage with Iron Maiden right now, and I didn't even know who they are. This is like so beyond wrong. But I'm just waiting for Ace. I'm waiting to sign whatever contracts we need to sign or talk about what we need to talk about.
Right.
But he never shows.
What?
So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and Iron Maiden's looking at Lisa and I like, "What are you guys doing here?" And so we're just kind of keeping in a corner until we find Ace. Like, please God, let him show up. And so I asked one of the security guys, "Is Ace coming?" And he goes, "No, Ace is gone." I'm like, "Oh no." He goes, "Yeah, I think I'm thinking this out loud. I think him and his wife had split, and that night she came to the show, and I think they kind of reconciled, and he left with her." I think that's what the guy told me. His wife,
Oh, okay.
her name now, she came back, and they kind of left together.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, okay." So we went home, and here we go. Once again, I'm trying to get in touch with them. I can't. None of the numbers are working. So that went on for a really long time. A friend of mine is a lawyer, and he agreed to kind of take this on and see if we could, recoup whatever was supposed to come to me.
So at that point, you just decided that rather than trying to get with him and finally meet with him and see what the next stage of this thing was, you decided to go the litigation route?
It was a long time. It was probably 2 years.
Oh, you hadn't heard from him again?
No.
Oh. And so you probably followed the album that came out and song.
I did, and I saw it came out on another album. There was an album called 12 Picks. It was on that as well. So, it just,
Did you have a credit?
Yes. Yeah, my name was on the song, on the record. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I say record.
Yeah, right.
It was a record at the time.
It was records at the time. But
but
you never received a dime.
Not up to that point, no.
Hmm.
So the part that I wrestled with, and this is like, I don't know if you and I have even ever talked about this, but I thought that Ace would have kind of taken me under his wing.
No.
I thought he would have said, this guy plays, he sings, knows how to produce, be a good guy for me to have in my camp, He just wrote, the single to my next CD. I wonder what else he's got up his sleeve, what else,
Right.
what other material he could write for me,
Yeah.
What could we do together if we did this for a year or two, what could we come up with? I just thought that's the way it was going to go. He would kind of have me back over his house and say, "All right, we need to fill out these contracts. We need to get you a BMI, ASCAP deal, whatever we got to do, get some money flowing." He knows the business, like I don't know anything at this stage.
Yeah.
I know show up with my guitar, play a session, get my $50 and go home. That was what I knew. I just assumed that's the way it was going to go, that I would even maybe go on the road with him.
Mm.
Maybe we'd tour together, but, then I found out, Todd Howarth was his guitar player. He's like tremendous.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't need me for that, but maybe a second guitarist. I don't know.
Right. Or just a song collaborator,
Yeah. If nothing else, I had other material.
I got a feel for you in the sense that here's your longtime hero, a guy you really admired. Now you're sort of in the inner circle. He gives you a kudo by taking your song and using it.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking to yourself, not only is he my hero and I got to meet him, but now we're getting intimate in the music world somewhat, and what this could lead to. And I know in everybody's minds, you start thinking, oh, it could then lead to this and then lead to that. And you start charting your whole future, and then you get your legs cut out from under you. That had to be devastating for you
Yeah,
as a
it was
fan.
really rough. Yeah, it was really rough. I just assumed he'd see me as kind of the golden goose or something, like
Hmm.
he'd needed a top song for a long time, and I gave him one. I just handed it to him, first shot, like
Yeah.
imagine if we worked together, like on a regular basis, what we could have come up with. I didn't even know him. I just took a shot at this,
Yeah.
but imagine if we really dug into it, him and I together, what we could have done.
Right.
So, I mean, that just surprised me, but
Yeah. So now you're in a position where you have to sue your childhood hero,
yeah,
and you got to get a lawyer, but lawyers are expensive.
do it. Yeah.
I guess you need a specialized lawyer, right? You can't just go to any lawyer. Got to be
Well,
someone.
the guy that did the lawsuit for me was a real estate lawyer.
Oh, wow.
I had an entertainment lawyer on retainer,
For Restless.
for Restless,
Yeah.
but he couldn't make anything happen. So this friend of mine had some ideas of how to get around some of the red tape and go right directly to the record company and get all we're trying to do is get an accounting
Yeah.
of whatever money was due to me. If it was zero, it's zero, but it would be nice to know, let's make this legit,
Yeah.
This song has showed up on 3, maybe even 4 records now, live DVDs, who knows what else, so can we just do something? Wouldn't you pay this kid something just to get him out of your life?
And so what was the
But,
end result? Was the end result that you finally got your due, or?
we got something, because I didn't pay for my lawyer, he gets it on commission, he takes the commission of whatever settlement we got. And it just felt crappy. The whole thing just felt crappy to have to do that to Ace.
Yeah, right.
And I still feel that way, even after all these years. I just wish we could talk about it, and I could maybe tell him my side of it, and he could tell me his or whatever. And, especially now, I've been in the music business for a long time. And I know, there's no money, it's like,
Right.
maybe he, this is just how it rolled in those days. I don't know, but it was just a kind of a weird thing to have to go through.
So you did resolve it. You are or were getting royalty checks. Are you still getting any royalty checks?
Yeah, I get $1.25 a quarter, I think, something like that. Wonder why I'm a website designer.
$1.25 a quarter.
Yeah, I open the statement. It's this big, thick packet of papers, and I have to open the whole thing, and it's such a waste. And I have to deposit $1.25. I feel like Jerry Seinfeld when he gets the super terrific happy hour checks. It's like, honey, check is in the mail today.
Frehley came out with a book called No Regrets.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
You read it?
Yeah.
Any reference to you in there?
No, thank God. It came close because it was kind of chronological.
Right.
So, and it got to the point where Sayin was coming out, and I'm sweating. I'm like, oh no, what's he gonna say? Oh, speaking of which, that's another thing that I found a little weird. I wasn't invited to the video shoot. I mean, the guy that co-wrote the song, don't you have to invite him to the video shoot? And that was a fun video shoot. Come on. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Hey now.
Hey now.
So anyway, yeah. But anyway, talk about full circle. This is how I'm going to wrap up this whole thing for you.
Okay.
Lisa, my wife, goes to a hairdresser in Mount Kisco, and this guy's his name is Derek, and he always works on her hair, and he's her colorist, and he cuts her hair and does all that stuff, and it's a big deal in my house. Three girls and all that.
3 girls, right?
So I don't know how it came up, but she ended up talking to him about music, and he mentioned something like he mentioned something about Ace Frehley. And Lisa said,
Another Ace Frehley story.
She goes, I got a good story for you. So she tells Derek the story of Insane. And he goes, you're not going to believe this, but I tour with Ace. I'm his guitarist.
What?
Yeah.
The
Derek
guy cutting her hair?
Yeah. He's Ace's guitar player. He goes on tour with Ace.
Like,
Because I performed Insane like a million times.
oh, like you needed to hear that. Oh man. That's crazy.
So what a crazy small world, coming all the way back to that. Isn't that nuts?
You know, it's interesting. I think it was in early 2000s. Ace Frehley sued one of those nostalgia companies for like trademark infringement.
Okay.
They were called Resaurus or something like that. They were selling replicas of Ace Frehley's Les Paul.
Oh.
And they were doing it like they had a deal with Gibson, but they were doing it without his permission.
Wow.
And he sued them. And it's almost like, yeah, now you know how it feels. When you're doing something, when somebody's doing something without your permission, right? Oh man, that's.
I tell you something, Charlie. I wish I read his book, before I met him, because I knew nothing about him. I didn't know how he was wired, how he rolled.
Yeah.
But after reading the book, I feel like I know him a lot better now.
You haven't really been playing guitar these days, right? I mean, which is a crime in itself. For those of you who have never heard Gene play, full disclosure, we played in a band together for 20. Well, how long was that?
About
for me,
20.
For me, it was about 22 years or something like that. And we played clubs and weddings and all that stuff back in our early my 20s or into 30s and whatever. And Gene was by far the best guitarist I've ever played with. And he is. No, you from the time I first met you were, at 14, I think it was, and you were playing Brian May stuff, like note for note, just so clean. The fact that you're not playing now, and I've always said this, whenever you're not playing, that's a crime, because you have such a gift for it. You're doing other things, web creation and design. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was a music composer up until 1996, around there. So I was a full-time musician. I was gigging, I was writing, I wrote for jingle houses in New York City.
Yeah, right.
I was a staff writer at Radio Band of America. That was a really big music house back in that day. With Harley Flom was the owner. We were competing. We had some major campaigns. It was an interesting life, to be a musician and have to go back to the drawing board with every song and soundtrack. It was a different thing every day. There was, it's very unpredictable, what you're going to be faced with.
Right.
And the timing was really difficult. BMW goes to Europe and shoots these unbelievable ads with huge crews and directors, and they book advertising time for Monday morning, and Sunday night they go, oh my God, we don't have music. It was like that. And, your beeper goes off and it's like, oh my God, okay. You're up all night, writing something for this so they can get the thing on the air at 8:00 in the morning. And so it was stressful. And a lot of times it really conflicted with my life. And, I've got 2 young children now and a marriage I'm trying to keep together. And it's just like, it's tricky, being a jingle writer. I know it sounds a little goofy, but it was a great living, but a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
You're going to write 20 things before one gets chosen,
You used to tell me stories of when, at this time, there was no internet, there was no digital transfer. And so you would drive into the city and you would play your thing. And they would like it, but they'd be like, no, we got to change this, change that. And we got to have it by this time. You'd have to battle the traffic, drive back to Westchester County, re-record it, and drive back down again.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was crazy. It was exciting. It felt amazing.
When it worked.
I'm doing what I love to do for a living. It was really exhilarating.
Yeah, yeah.
But
oh, man.
after a period of time, it just was like, wow, this is really getting hard. And by some miracle, I had written a piece of music and I had to go to a graphic design company. It was called New Light Productions or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So I had to go there with a piece of music. I'm presenting it to a client. They're laying it up, on film to whatever I was doing. And I was kind of wandering around looking in the doors of the guys doing the animations there. They did video editing. They did graphic design. And one of the guys was doing something in Photoshop. And I don't know what happened to me, but I had to know how that all worked. And I feel like my life changed that day. The guy that I met, his name is Gene Levine.
Yeah.
And he also had passed away
Yeah.
years ago. But this dude, I tell you, he just took my hand. He goes, here's a copy of Photoshop, and here's how to use it. And I started reading books on website design, and it was like this weird, like I've done it my whole life kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most natural thing. And like within a year, I was like a legitimate website designer. My clients, started with individuals, as artists, songwriters, anybody that needed a website. But all of a sudden now I'm working for Pepsi.
Right.
Pepsi Cola. I'm designing 3 of their internal websites.
Wow.
So it just was like meant to be.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, left the music world at that point.
Yeah.
It was much more predictable. I loved that I wasn't competing anymore. When I'm hired to do something, I do it and I get paid for it. Wow, there's no competition. There's no rejection. And the timing was better. I love working 9 to 5.
Right.
That worked really good for me.
Yeah,
Clients
sure.
didn't work on the weekends back in those days.
Well, that's, I think that's what happens. Once you get into a family dynamic,
Yeah.
and you start having children, and you start realizing, wow, I got to make sure that they have a roof over their heads and they've got stability. And this is a very unstable industry, and this one is more stable. And, you're a creative guy by nature. So I could see how you could fall into that. It's not a far stretch for you because you have creative tendencies. So that works in your favor. And the fact that you were extremely passionate about it, I think, when you're passionate about something, you in particular, I know that, you're like 100% at it, so.
I still love it to this day. I love designing websites.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. It's very musical in a way. Like it's like a composition. You start at the top and you work down, and it all has to work together. It has to have a consistency. There's branding, there's all this stuff that goes into it.
Right.
And it's just such a natural fit for me. I've always been good at it, and I still love to do it.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing after all this time.
Hey.
Every job, I can't wait to get started at it, It's so crazy, right?
And you've been doing it for how long?
God, since 95. What's that? 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years.
Woo. Wow.
Good for you.
And it's better than ever now with the tools that I have now. My God, I wish I had them back then, like with anything.
Don't we all? Yeah.
God, imagine,
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And designing for all the different types of devices now, that's really super challenging.
Yeah.
For phones and tablets.
That's
and
right.
Every type of brand and manufacturer, Android versus Apple. There's just like a million permutations.
Yeah.
And, to be able to make one website that works perfectly on all those, I don't know, gives me a thrill.
Yeah. When you're driving in your car and you're listening to music or whatever, maybe not listening to anything, do melodies or songs come into your head that you're like, oh, I got to write this down?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sad about that. It doesn't happen to me anymore.
No.
Yeah, it used to all the time. It used to come to me all the time. But
right.
But I don't want you to be sad about this. I still play guitar, just about every day.
Do you?
I've been slacking off lately. Yeah, I got a really nice setup in my office.
Yeah.
And, I plug my iPhone into a mixing board, and I have a Marshall cabinet with I put, a Fender Twin reverb. Remember that Fender Twin that I used to play in the band with?
Yeah.
I took the guts out of it, and I made a head So it looks like you ever seen a basement head?
Yeah.
It looks like that on top of a Marshall cabinet. It's like, it doesn't belong, but it's this beautiful combination. I love, tinkering with pedals and all that. And
Right. Yeah.
so I'm still chasing my ultimate tone, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to like a young guy coming up who was maybe you when you were 25?
Well, there's only so much you can control in life, and you do the best you can. And I don't know if I would have done this any differently. Something I would recommend is running it by someone who is, like a mentor to you, someone that knows business a little bit. One of the reasons I bring this up, Robeson Oil.
Oh boy, I know this story, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I wrote the Robeson Oil jingle,
Yes.
which is in Westchester County. And I signed a piece of paper that said that, here's what you're making, and that's it, and we own this from now on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you're going to get, and don't ever ask us for another dime because we can use this for whatever we want. And at that time, that seemed like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand business. I didn't have any money. This is a bird in the hand. Of course I'm going to sign it. This is a job.
Right.
It's a song. I'm going to be able to write a song. This is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, is that a mistake? That thing's been on the air for 25 years, maybe more, 30 years. That thing is still going.
Yeah.
And they put the slogan on all of their trucks. You've got a friend in Robeson. I wrote that. I wrote that slogan. But if before signing that contract, I might have run it by, someone in my family that understood law or a friend. And maybe they would have said, instead of the flat fee, consider like a yearly percentage or something, or a per play, like 5 cents a play or something like that.
Yeah, a licensing fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But who would have thought?
No, because,
that, I thought that what's this going to run for 6 months?
Yeah,
that was pretty typical,
It's a local company, a local oil company.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that big. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm making money. They like my stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a good day.
Right.
I remember being very happy that day that I signed that contract.
Yeah.
If I could warn anybody, it's just, get a second opinion of someone that knows this a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Run it by somebody. I didn't have anybody to run it by at the time.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that.
Gene, thanks so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, my brother.
It was great to catch up with you. Every time we're together and we're talking, all these great memories just keep flooding through of our time together. So
we could do 20 of these, Charlie. I tell you, the stuff that we've been.
I don't know that we want to do 20, but
yeah,
there was some good stories. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Good. No, thank you.
Nice.
Great seeing you.
Great to see you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Charlie.
Anyway, that will do it for this edition of the Just Sayin podcast. Make sure to download or order my book, How I Met My Mother and the Four Brothers I Never Knew I Had. And you can get that through Barnes & Noble or wherever you download your books. That will do it for this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and be kind. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Sayin podcast.